So for this tutorial, I'm going to be using After Effects rather than Photoshop like I usually do. I'm going to be using After Effects CC 2017, though this is a very basic video editing technique that you could do in probably any basic video editing software. I just personally use After Effects because that's what I'm used to at this point. So let's begin with just opening After Effects, and I'm not going to go into too much detail with the software like I would with Photoshop, because primarily I am not as experienced in After Effects as I am in Photoshop, and it's very easy to get confused in this software, I find personally, because most people have not actually seen After Effects before. And I always feel like video editing is a bit more complicated than image editing, but that is just my personal opinion. That's because I'm an image editor, not a video editor. So with that all out of the way, let's just begin with importing our file. Now, what you can do is you can just open your Finder or your File Explorer, depending on what you're using, and drag and drop your file into After Effects. Now, that is one thing you can do. But what you also can do is you can go into File, Import, File, and do it that way, which is supposedly the proper way. I don't think there's much of a difference. When you've done that, you have your video file imported into After Effects. What you can do now is you can either drag and drop it into your composition, which is to the right of your project files, or you can just drop it into the timeline. It doesn't really matter which one you do. Now, if you're like me, you'll have a bit too much of the video in the scene that you, convert it. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut off these parts, because this is the scene that we're going to do the anti-pan to, let's call it that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the current time indicator, which is this blue line with the arrow. That's the best description I can give you. And I'm going to move it to right where the scene begins. So let me just find that, which is right here. Then I'm going to make sure that I've selected this bluish line, and then I'm going to press Control-Shift-D if I'm on Windows, and Command-Shift-D if I'm on Mac, which I am. Now, what this does, this splits up my scene from the previous parts of the video, which I don't need. I can just click this now and press delete. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to also move this, just drag and move this to the start, so that this is the start of my video. And I'm going to do the exact same thing with the end of the video. So I'm just going to find where my scene ends, which is here, and I'm going to make sure that I have it right on this spot. Command-Shift-D or Control-Shift-D, select this part of my video, and I press delete, and there we go. So now we have this. And as you can see, the camera, well, the scene is moving into the left direction. What we're going to do now is I'm going to move my current time indicator to the front of my timeline, and I'm going to select my video again. I'm going to press Control-C if I'm on Windows and Command-C if I'm on Mac, which copies the video, and I'm going to do Control-V or Command-V to paste it, which is the same in pretty much every software, and that's that. So what I'm going to do now, I have two video files here. What I want to do with the top one, I'm going to click this little arrow here, which opens up some animation settings, let's call it that. I'm going to go into Transform, and I'm going to click Opacity, this little stopwatch here. And I'm going to set that to 50%. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag my time frame indicator right towards the end, and I'm going to drag this right to the end as well. The start of my second video, I'm going to drag that to the end of my first video. And as you can see, if you've done it correctly, you now have this weird blended image. And that's what we're going to use as a reference point. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to click this little area here underneath the lock, and that will lock up this video so that it will not accept any more changes. Later we're going to unlock that and delete this layer because we won't need this anymore, but right now I can't accidentally make any changes to it. So I'm going to take my current time indicator, I'm going to go back to the start, and I'm going to select the first layer, and I'm going to open up the transform little panel here again, and I'm going to click the stopwatch in front of position. And I'm not going to do anything with that. I'm just going to move my time frame indicator to the start of the second video. And now I'm going to press this little square here, tilted square I'd say it is, and this will add a keyframe. And I make very sure that I do it at the start of this video, otherwise I will mess it up. Now, what I can do, I'll zoom in a little bit, I can now freely move this so that it matches the layer on top, which is the start of the video. There you go. What I did is I clicked it, moved it a little bit, and then held Shift, which will hold it in place reasonably well. And I just move it right over the scene so that it matches completely. Maybe I need to move it a little bit, like a pixel to the left or right, depending on the scene, which I can just do with my arrow keys. But then, as you can see, it no longer moves. I do get this black border, but I'll show you in a second how to get rid of that, which we're not going to get rid of in After Effects. We're going to do that in Photoshop. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to unlock this layer, and I'm going to select it and press delete. And that's that. That's all that I'm going to edit to it. I'm just going to select this little layer, and I'm going to go into File, Export, Add to Render Queue, and I'm going to press Render after I've checked. This is where it outputs to, which is the desktop. I make sure that this is on best settings, and this is on lossless, and then I press Render. And this will save the video. And that can take a while depending on how good your computer is. In my case, it's going to take a few seconds. There you go. And now I'm going to open up Photoshop. And I'm going to import this video that I just saved into Photoshop. So let's have that open. Okay, so I'm just going to press File, Import Video Frames to Layers. Give it a second, and I'm going to import this file. It's going to import everything. Oh, it's going to take a long time. I'm just going to cut this up a little bit so I don't need everything actually. There we go. It will render some blackness at the end. If you're stupid like me and you forget to cut some certain stuff out at the end of your video timeline, like technically you're supposed to move this to the end, and it will render everything in this little area here. Forgot to mention that, but yeah. So now I've got it imported. I'm just going to quickly resize. No, I'm not going to resize it yet. So I've imported it, and now it's in Photoshop, and I'm going to go to the last frame. And as you can see, there's this black border. This is the furthest the black border will go. I also see a little bit of black at the top here, so we're going to crop that out. Now I like to crop by using the selection tool. Just selecting right inside of that. When I have my selection ready to go, I press C, which will crop it. You can also just click the crop icon, and then I'll press Enter, and then Enter to confirm it. And as you can see, there's no more black border. Now at this point you can resize it, but if you're like me, you want it to be a little bit more equal to like regular GIFs. So I'm going to crop it again. There we go, and then I'm going to resize it, and I'm going to do that by image size, and then set it to 540. And I like the height to be around 300, which is like the normal GIF size. And I'm going to press OK. And then as you can see, it's not a perfect loop, of course, but as you can see, it no longer moves from one side to the other. And I hope that you enjoyed this tutorial. This is the end of it. I hope this helped. I know that I'm not the most well-versed in After Effects, but I think I covered it quite reasonably well. If you have any more questions, feel free to just send me a message.